Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Thanks for coming, watching, being aware. First item of business is the town administrator report. You keep getting closer and closer to the top of this agenda every week.
Well, if there's nothing before me, I'm it.
True story. All right, go ahead.
All right, so just a couple updates on things. The generator, the parts have been ordered. They're en route. They're hoping to come in any day now, and they will be hopefully fixing that. We'll soon be able to return the borrowed generator, which we've used, back to Holyoke. Maintenance of building issues. Annual inspections for the elevator is tomorrow. S&E is coming next week. Preventive Maintenance Committee, we meet tomorrow at 6. John's writing this down now for us, so he remembers. Eversource, I spoke with them. We have to get them a copy of our bills, and then they will get us back an energy efficiency survey from their consulting company. Generally, what they offer is they say, okay, if you replace all these light bulbs, you'll do better with energy costs, et cetera, et cetera. They'll fund 50% of the project in a form of a grant. The other 50% they'll fund in a 0% interest loan. That how it generally works is if your bill today is $10, once you save the money from the energy efficiency changes and you're only paying $8, they're still going to bill you $10, so you're paying the loan off in the same amount of money as you're spending today. And once the loan's paid off, which I think they say is about 2-3 years, you're all set, and then your bills just get reduced from the savings. So we're still getting more information about it. We don't know enough at this point, but we're hoping to get some more info soon. Some updates on my office. I have started the Leadership Pioneer Valley program. I think the only other municipalities who are involved in this are down in Springfield. There's banks involved, nonprofits, colleges. 35 students are in the class. They range from probably about my age up into the early 50s. So it's an interesting group. We have our retreat this weekend, which will be nice. And essentially what we do is we spend a lot of time focusing, learning about the Pioneer Valley itself, how to work with other communities and other folks in the Pioneer Valley, and also pick up leadership, training, and skills. So it should be interesting. Last week I was away at purchasing training for 3 days in Huntington. Huntington is a very interesting community. Doing the purchasing training via TV was very interesting. We only had connection about 50% of the time, so it was definitely fun. I did take back quite a few things that once we start implementing here are probably not, my office is going to be the least popular. So we'll see. I'll keep you guys apprised as we move forward. Right now we're mostly focusing on our IFB, invitation for bids for the library's HVAC upgrades. So we're working on that. This week I have a STAM meeting, Small Town Administrators of Massachusetts. Benefit of going to STAM meetings, which was not and is not always explained to folks, is if you attend 4 STAM meetings in a calendar year, they will provide you with the opportunity to apply for a full scholarship for the MMA conference in January. So that's a $150 value by going to 4 meetings that don't cost anything. So it's a nice concept. We have more purchasing training in mid-October. At that point, I could certify as an associate in supplies and services, or I could wait and do the designing, construction, and bid laws training, but that actually costs more money than the first 2 do, and we wouldn't be able to get into the spring. But should I be able to take that 3rd class, I will be an associate with Associate MCPPO. So we're working on it. There's also various meetings the next couple months. I will be in and out of the office sporadically. We have a couple Selectmen Association meetings that everyone's received invitations to. Those are coming up. I think there's a couple on, let's see, October 1st.
Yeah, 1st or 2nd.
Is stuff at night up at Hampshire Courthouse. And then on the 3rd, that Saturday, is the annual Selectmen's Association down in Rentham. Charlie and myself are going, and I don't think I've heard from anyone else, but if you're interested, we have room in the car. That's pretty much all I have on that. If you have any questions on meetings, I think I've sent out my schedule, but I'll do it a few more times. Other updates. So the Capital Improvement Committee started meeting last week. They are revising their forms. They are making their forms model their ranking system, so it's easier for people and it's much more transparent. So if they're asking a question on the form, it's because they're going to use that answer directly in their ranking system. And it takes out any subjectivity that was left in, makes it very objective analysis. They've also revised the form so that there'll be a section on the bottom. One confusing and concerning piece from last year with capital projects was just because it's approved by the Capital Improvement Committee does not mean it's compliant with purchasing rules and laws. So we now have a spot for the purchasing agent to sign off, and we also have a statement that we'll be putting that's a complete disclaimer that, just because Capital Improvement Committee approves does not mean this is automatically approved by purchasing or compliant. Bylaw Advisory Committee, I've been working with this behind the scenes. Virginia Ahart is interested. She has communicated that to me. And Jim Palermo is also interested. At this point, we need a third body before the board appoints and they can start meeting. I believe it was a body of 5 that you guys created, so we need one more, so at least we have an initial quorum so they can begin. My hope for them is to start with just restructuring how it looks, giving the actual general bylaws sections so it's easier to find. So I would hope that they would go back, look at other communities, figure out what they liked in them, design what sections they have for ours, and then move things around so that they're renumbered, but not change anything initially, just get us in the working format so we can understand where we're going. So if anyone's at home listening who's interested in the bylaw ad hoc committee, please let me know. One other thing. So last week I had texted everyone on the board to have them come in and sign the bill warrant. So one of the things that's come up in conversation back and forth was what happened years ago, or a period of time ago, is the bill warrant would come down on Tuesdays, the Board of Selectmen would not meet, but all the board members would come in to sign the bill warrant. There is concern that they're afraid to send things out unless everything is signed off first. So it pretty much brings us to option A or option B. Option A is that we have board members come in on Tuesdays that we don't have meetings and sign. And option B is we ask if they would be so kind as to have all bills and payroll payable on the same date. So instead of having a biweekly payable schedule, they're paid on the same date, they could have whatever submittal schedule. That would cause a little problems initially up front just until you're caught up on the bill cycle. But essentially it comes down to the board what they wish to do. But they are very adamant in both those offices, treasurers and accountants, that they really would like the Board of Selectmen to sign before the bill warrants go out.
Is there a possibility of electronic signatures? Because that would go a lot quicker.
I don't know, John. Let me see. We'd have to check with the auditors. The only problem you're going to have with doing that is you'd only be able to probably physically see the warrant summary. You wouldn't be able to see all the bills because it would be too cumbersome for them to scan everything in.
I know electronic signature is legal in Massachusetts. I've converted all my documents over to it now, and it's a matter of minutes if people are sitting at their desks to approve it and get it back.
I can look into that.
Yeah, and we use EchoSign, but there's, Adobe Pro you can use, several programs, so.
Any other thoughts on that? Would the board be amenable to the notion of signing the bill warrant on the Tuesdays in which the board's not meeting?
I can make it in.
You can or can't?
I can.
Jackie?
Only
John can at least electronic.
Or come here after
electronically.
6 o'clock.
Charlie's around. And I think Shannon works in the building, so we might be okay. All right, that's all I have on that piece. The next thing I want to just cover briefly is the special town meeting. So special town meeting we have scheduled for October 20th. So the first question I have to the board, are you guys willing to stick to that date?
Is it a reasonable date? Or does it need to be later?
Well, we're not going to be able to have free cash back in time because at this point we need to have a special Board of Selectmen meeting late next week in order to approve the special town meeting, and we still have to get the warrant to the Finance Committee as well. I haven't sent it to them yet because as I've just finished, literally drafting the draft.
We need to move it up a week.
We can move it back, we can do however the board wishes. At this point, I have checked with the moderator and the Norris School, and they are both available for that date, but if we want to move it back a week, we can move it. It's the board's decision on how they wish to play this.
Town clerk had a scheduling issue too.
Not until November,
Okay.
but I can double check with her this evening if you guys come up and want to change the date.
Well, I'm here the 20th, the 27th, most of that week I'm out of town. So the week after, I
Well,
will.
if we can get it all done by then it's fine, but that just gives us another meeting later in the year.
Or it just means I'm not here, so I just want to let you know.
But that's a vote, John.
It's fine, wherever it is now is fine with me.
Okay. So if it's going to be on October 20th, and the board needs to find a day next week that they can meet to approve the warrant. Remember, it needs to be a quorum of you, so if only 3 of you are available, or maybe 3 are available during the day, and everyone else sends in comments, whatever works best for the board, but we just need to get this done. We do have to get it posted and reviewed by town council, and we have a short period of time to do so. So let me just give you a preview of what we have on the special town meeting warrant so far, and let me know if there's anything else you'd like to see for this warrant, or anything already off the top of the bat you'd like to hold off on, and we'll do so, so we don't spend time and resources on things. So we have the administrative section, so you have adopting non-criminal ticketing, which is adopting the Mass General Law. Net metering solar contract, that has to do with the solar contract up in Deerfield, the ability to allow the Board of Selectmen to enter into a 20-year contract for net metering credits, so it's essentially a Groupon is what you're buying for your solar energy. I met with the gentleman from that last week, and they're willing to talk more to the board, or even to come to special town meeting and discuss it. I'd also probably like to see if we can get the town council, as long as they don't have any problem with just saying entering into one of these projects, so that for some reason, if we're too late to enter into the Deerfield project, we're already good to go to contract with the next one, once it's vetted. The next one is add zoning bylaw demolition delay. This is coming from the Historical Commission. Through the planning board, it is a zoning bylaw. It's already been vetted by town council through CPC funds.
Right.
So, add and amend dog bylaws. We've met on this a few times. What we'd like to do is just adopt the state's definitions that they're used in the animal piece. And we'd also like to add just the very draft basic of dog bylaws, so we have something to go on. Right now, our bylaws are so absence of anything of substance to actually help guide folks and give people a means of remedy if they get into a problem. The next, any questions on the administrative floor? Okay. Fiscal year operating appropriations. So we have transfers of funds. The first set is the CPC. So CPC has put forward Labrie Field. We had a bill out there for $18,752.89 for Gagliarducci. They had done the work on the project when we did the Labrie Field. The other person was paid first before they were. They were entitled to be paid for their work. This is simply remedying that, and this is an older bill from a couple of years ago at this point that these poor folks have not been paid.
That takes a 9/10 vote.
I do not have any of that information down yet, Charlie. I simply, we're skeletorial here.
Okay.
Next one is transfer funds historical preservation. This is $3,200 to fund supplemental costs. When last year CPC had voted to allow funds to the Historical Commission in order to move the old safe from Old Town Hall to the town clerk's office, they did not realize at the time until they started to move forward with the project that the only way to get the safe in this building is through the window. So the cost went up. Let's see, next one, open space recreation. This is for a playscape. So it's $6,000 to the Park Commission to be used to fund the cost of the installation of a playscape at Conant Park that would serve the needs of younger children. Virginia has a lot more information on this, and we'll probably put it in the notes as well. My understanding is there was someone who passed away years ago, and it was a small child, and the family put money aside in order to move forward with building a playscape for toddlers. And this is in conjunction with that project.
Is this the same one where the church donated money?
I think so.
Yeah, and the pastor lost a child. And I was at the master planning committee last week, and they discussed that. But you're saying Conant Park. I was thinking it was Labrie Field. I may be wrong.
I put
It's at
Conan,
Conan Park on the
yeah.
other side of the bridge near the
Okay,
pavilion,
yeah,
not
but-
where the,
But
not
that's
where
where
the
it's
stuff
coming
is.
from, a
Yeah.
fund for the
yes,
child.
yes. And the last CPC piece is the SYAA. The amount of money I do not have at the moment, but it's to fund a portion of the creation of a new Little League field at Conant Park. So what we'll probably do on this one is if CPC believes it's going to move forward, they can give me the higher dollar amount and we can amend on the floor. Yes, Charlie?
What happened to the handrails for this building?
I wasn't on one of the 4 articles that Virginia gave me, so you'd have to check in with her.
Well,
If-
the meeting isn't until next week with her.
So if she says we can do it, then we can put it on as an article, and if they vote after
Okay,
the
all
warrant is approved, then we just pass over it at town meeting, but at least we've covered all the bases.
right.
I noticed that as well.
You have a cost, right?
I have 2 quotes so far. It's very difficult to get quotes, but we're looking at 16,000 and less.
For the railings?
Yeah,
Wow.
that's the high end.
Wow.
Okay, I mean, they are less.
Not more than I thought.
So the next section is transferring operating stabilization. We could take this from somewhere else. These are a bunch of things that we have to pay. I do not have the exact amounts on some of these, and I don't have the exact location of where they're coming from until I sit down and meet with Vicky to go over what we think based on all the numbers. The first one is some amount of money to replenish the Larrabee Building Expenses Account, which I think I've kept the board apprised of as to where we are on that over the past couple of meetings. The next one is to do the same thing for the Town Hall Building Expenses Account. And then we have a certain amount in order to fund the SHARPS program. As has been discussed in the past, we used to get a grant for the SHARPS program. We no longer get that grant, and it's a definitive amount of money. We have a lot of folks who actually use the SHARPS program, and it does continue to make the town safer by having a spot for folks to deposit it. But it's up to the board if they wish for me to keep this on, or we can take it off.
Janet King, Finance Committee. We just approved from the reserve fund to the Board of Health, $2,500 for this program last night,
Why?
because it's a critical program.
But did they need the funding right now? Because they knew it was going on special town.
They didn't tell me that it was going on, and we hadn't seen special town meeting, and we weren't aware, so we hadn't seen this, and they didn't share that with us, so.
I'll follow up. I was still waiting for Jerry to get me the amount of money to put in the warrant. The next one is, we have a $650 bill to Jack Jacobic. He did legal work for us last year, us and the planning board. Unfortunately, he didn't submit the bill or draft the bill till June 30th, and we didn't get it till sometime in August when he realized we hadn't paid it. We also have $2,135 to Copeland and Page from last year's bills. What happened there is we had bills for the Greenway and bills for the ZBA. We had submitted them to the Greenway to pay. Apparently, it was the Board of Selectmen to pay. And we also submitted the other piece of the ZBA to pay, and they refused to pay it because they felt it wasn't something they should pay for, despite the fact that they asked for legal counsel, which is another issue. But generally, how we've rectified that from happening again in the future is any bills that come in, we pay in whole, and then we invoice individual departments to get reimbursed. That way, the vendor's not waiting. John, do you have a thought?
I have lots of thoughts, but nothing to do with this.
Gotcha, cool. Next one is for $100 to Tom Quinlan, our building commissioner, for reimbursement and expenses. He just didn't get the reimbursement in time. He had attended the event last year. It was a $100 class, and he wasn't reimbursed.
Is he still on the old program of $200 a month, or are we reimbursing him as he has expenses?
He's on an old program. I don't remember if it's $200 or $250 for travel expenses off the top of my head.
Okay, but that same program?
Yes. The next thing is, let's see, to transfer. I did not have an administrative assistant for the first couple months of this fiscal year, so I'd like to transfer some of those funds into the administrative expenses so I can continue to sign up for the $700 purchasing class and finish the certification there. And that's that's all I have on my lines. Is there anything anyone can think of that needs to be, yes, Charlie?
Not in town meeting, but I do have a couple of questions to double back. One, the insulation of the attic of this building? Where are we with that?
I thought we were gonna wait and see where Eversource came with their consultant, if they touched any
I haven't
opinion
heard
or
it.
anything like
I
that.
haven't heard anything.
Um,
That's-
The other thing is, I've been talking around, folks have talked about looking into green communities, because you can get some funding and some loans and grants to update and make sure things are energy compliant, so that might be a direction to look.
Just so the board understands, there's very little insulation on this side of the building, and that's one of the reasons we're having all the ice dams.
But it's, when we went up there, it's sheet rocked, so to get insulation, and it's a bigger job than just putting insulation.
I'm no expert, but I do know that you could blow it in.
Right.
But the point is we got nothing.
Can't we just get a quote on that so we know where we are?
Heather?
Can we get a quote on blowing some insulation in up there?
Can you what?
Get a quote on blowing in some insulation?
Blowing insulation?
Well, it's all sheet rock, so rather than
Blown
tear all the
insulation.
sheet rock down.
Just ask them what it would
Look
cost
at
to
it,
insulate it. Don't tell them specifically how to do it.
That's a good idea.
Because the next thing I'm going to get is somebody coming back, well, you said do it this way. And I'm going to blame George.
Okay, that's fine.
That works for me.
Yeah, done.
Thanks, George.
Questions for Heather?
Anything else for me?
Do you need a vote on the transfer of the funds from the administrative assistant to your admin expenses? No?
No, the board will approve it or not approve it when they approve the entire warrant, as long as you guys have no objections to it in the first place. No, if you'd like to amend anything, add anything, let me know. I did tell people drop dead deadline for anything on the warrant was the 25th, because I have to get it from skeletal form to functioning, walking human. So, everyone good?
Yep.
Okay.
Select board updates and liaison reports. PQB met a couple weeks ago. We're working on the bylaws. And school committee meets tomorrow night. So I'm sure I'll have more to talk about after that.
Master Planning Committee met last week. Everybody gave an update on what they were doing, and I updated them what we were doing on a few of the items, but it was pretty routine.
Okay.
I met with the police department and members of the police department. The camaraderie and workmanship between these individuals is very refreshing. I see new directions developing with the police department. Everything positive.
Jackie?
I just had a question for Charlie, actually.
Can you turn your microphone on and put it near you?
I just had a question regarding the zoning board. Nilda had mentioned Gilbert Road, and I was going to ask Charlie if you had an update at all about that.
Well, I've just read the correspondence you've been reading, but it's obvious, the bottom line is, they have to go in front of the zoning board, and that, when that permit process is inactive, that's when the individual has the right to express their concerns relative to it.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Reports from departments, boards, or committees? Anybody? Janet?
Hi, Janet Kane, 83 Glendale Road, Finance Committee and Liaison for the Personnel Policy and Procedures Board. Watched the meeting a couple weeks ago, and it became clear there was some confusion as to when the Finance Committee actually meets. Since June 29th, Monday, June 29th, we've been meeting the Monday prior to the Select Board meeting at 5:30, and that, especially as we come into budget time, we're really anxious to get a liaison to the meetings. We had a meeting last night, and as Heather mentioned 2 weeks ago, we would meet on Mondays, and we had no liaison present. So we really wish to have somebody there. So just our request as a committee to have somebody in
someone present.
attendance. And clarifying if there was any confusion from that.
So can Shannon and you, Jackie and Shannon, get together and figure out which meetings you guys can attend and which ones you can't? Okay. Open time for the public?
Don't mind if
Hi, Mr. Kalita.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Terrific. Bill Kalita, 106 Gilbert Road, Southampton. I'll throw this title out, Retired Fire Chief. And the reason I'm doing that is because I got a couple of problems. One of which was your paper release back in August, where everyone was praising Chief Workman for starting a paramedic service in town, especially you. That paramedic service was started by myself and Deputy Chief Kyle Miltimore. That service was up and running before the chief came to town. Okay?
Well, when you say praising him for getting it going, what was the exact quote in the paper, Bill?
You praise him, but it says after being hired, Workman successfully started the paramedic ambulance service, the first to the town of Southampton.
That's not a quote for me.
No, but you were, I watched the meeting, and you did praise him on bringing it in. You said it was well worth it. It's about time we brought it in and brought us from a
I
basic
said
service. Yes, you did. Look back at the minutes of the meeting.
But you're saying I was quoted in the
Look back at the
paper.
minutes of the meeting.
You're saying I was quoted in the paper. Is that my
That
name
is-
next to the
That is
quote?
part of this.
Is that my
as
name
well.
next to the quote, Bill? Yes or no? You said it
What?
was. Is that my name next to a quote?
On this here, there was just a statement made.
Okay, so don't say I was
But-
quoted in the paper.
If you watch the meeting,
I'm just asking for the
if you
truth,
watch the
Bill.
meeting, you're in there praising him.
That, not to start the program, Bill. You know that's not right.
Okay, I know it's not right,
You
that's
come
why I'm
You
here.
come here representing something and it's not true, so don't go
My other
there.
problem I've got is the fact that we were not a basic level. We haven't been a basic level for 20-something years. We were an intermediate level when we went to paramedic. The reason we went to paramedic was because the state was closing down intermediates. So we had our option, go back to basic, go up to paramedic. I came to select board, we went to paramedic. Okay? I've got a few things. I don't know if the board even has an idea why we have a full-time fire chief. I don't know if anyone on this board was a member of that time when they went from part-time to full-time chief. I'm not sure. Okay. Give you a little history of why we have a full-time chief was because, as now, we have a problem with coverage. The full-time chief was made so that he would respond on calls. You'd have one person being paid, responding on calls. You'd need another EMT, and we'd be all set. Things would work great. That's not happening at this point. My personal feeling is, it has nothing to do who the chief is, but when I was there, I was putting in 55 hours a week, getting paid for 40. But I answered calls, days, nights, weekends. That's what the job entailed. Unfortunately, that's not happening. That's why you have no call coverage, part of it. The other problem is, I don't know if anyone here knows what type of department we had over there, whether it was volunteer, on-call, or full-time. I'm not sure if anyone knows.
At what point?
A point before Chief Workman came.
So while you were there?
While I was
Did
there,
we
while
have-
Chief Hyde was
Did
there.
we have all of that above?
No,
A call department, as far as I know.
exactly. On call, a call department means people are on call. You carry a radio, tones go off, you respond to a call. You don't have that now. He did away with that. When I was there, prior to Chief Hyde also, and Chief Barkham, people were on call 24/7. You were on a team. When you went there, hey, geez, you know, part of this is you have to be on call. What's that mean? You're going to be on call, you're going to get a stipend, tones go out, you respond. And that's how it worked. Whether it was a holiday, a weekend, during the week, whatever. You don't have that now. You do not have on-call teams. That's why you have so many days go by and nobody responds. And we can't have that in this town of Southampton. We all rely on people responding when we dial 911. As I said, when I was chief, I went in there. I was there, I don't know, 18 months, something like that. I started sending people to the academy and stuff. That department was starting to come alive and grow. Mutual aid calls. We were going on mutual aid calls at Westhampton, Westfield fires at apartment houses. We were going to Easthampton, Northampton, Florence, answering calls. We're not doing that now.
Well, let me ask
We
you that
do a
question.
few.
Because we had I forget the fireman's name in here a couple weeks ago, and he went over the fact that we do mutual aid calls. We do it both sides.
We do a few now.
Well, how many is a few? I mean, you know, you're saying we used to do a lot, now we're not doing any, but we're doing a few.
Since the new chief's taken, and I hate to keep saying the new chief, but since I left, I don't think we've ever been to Westfield.
I don't know the answer, but we can
Okay,
ask
well,
him.
this is something you ought to check out.
I know it, but
Mutual aid, also, he said every department uses mutual aid. The part of the mutual aid agreement is when your resources are used up, that's when you call in mutual aid. Mutual aid was not meant, hey, 3 days, we can't have a crew on, nobody wants to work, you guys cover our town. That's not mutual aid.
I think we agree with you.
Northampton just had a rollover, 91. They called Southampton, send us an ambulance. We didn't go, couldn't get one. And that's not the first time. There's a lot of times mutual aid is called. I watched that tape also, and he said, yeah, I believe it was Patty Line. And he said, yeah, we've been to Northampton, we answered a call. They've also answered a call to Westhampton that I don't think Westhampton's going to be too happy about a while back for a fire. I'm not going to get into that. My thought, only a thought, if we can't have a chief that wants to answer calls and be dedicated to answer calls, we should maybe think of restructuring the fire department to a part-time chief and 2 full-time paramedic firefighters. That would at least give us some coverage that we don't have now. I suggest that you guys look into the amount of calls that are being missed. We have just started up our paramedic service again in this town. I don't know what the state required us to do. I have not. I was going to go see if I could see the contract. I don't know if they require us to do Sunday to Saturday day shift coverage like we run there, plus be able to have a nighttime EMT coverage. But that's something that needs to be looked into, because if that's part of the contract that the state says, your paramedic license is here, but you must provide this, and we're not doing it, there's a chance we could end up losing that license as well as a basic license. So that's something that needs to be checked out.
When we started this and we had talked about moving from intermediate to paramedic level service, I can remember asking you, you know, we had talked about having coverage 8 to 4. And I said, when are the majority of the calls? Is it better to have it from 2 to 10? We went through the whole thing.
Right.
And you said that along the way, we would have to change when what the coverage was to have more. Have we reached that point, or has that changed because of recent events?
I don't know the answer to that question. When I did it, I ran it through to find out when our calls most of our calls happen. I believe at that time it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's why the day shift was really important, because that was our big call volume.
Okay.
Today, I have no idea if it's still 3 o'clock. It might be 6 o'clock. It might be 10 o'clock at night. I have no idea.
Thank you.
Did everyone get my email that I sent back on 6/9/15? It was in regards to a call behind Cumberland Farms.
That was
I know you did, and I know you did.
Did you send it directly to all of us?
I sent it to the board. And the reason I bring this up, because one of the things that during the chief's interview he was talking about was patient care. And I bring that call up because I did send an email here. It was a Tuesday night. It was 5:08 at night. I don't know if that helps you. You
Well,
responded
that's the one
back
with-
to me.
That's the one with the wheelchair?
Right.
Oh, okay, yeah.
A woman fell out of her wheelchair, thunderstorms, laid out behind Cumberland's for almost an hour. Tones went out. Nobody.
If I remember right, that's when the police got there first, and they just assisted her putting back in the chair, or that's what the police department told us.
Right, and that's correct. Well, my problem is, it was 8 minutes after 5, he was here. He didn't respond. According to an email I got back from Charlie, yep, you're right. 5:08, the call went out. He called 911, nobody was responding at 5:11. Why? He's an EMT.
Again, if I'm remembering right, I may not be. I thought the police got there and called and said, no, we don't need the fire.
That was after 911 was called. Easthampton was already en route, and Easthampton was canceled because, yes, the woman said, no, I'm not hurt.
Right.
But my problem is, nobody responded. Why? 8 minutes after 5, there's not one single person in the town of Southampton, including the chief here, to respond? I don't know.
I think that we understand I think we know what your concerns are. I think that you've made them very clear along with others. And it's helpful to hear them again. I think it's helpful to keep us aware of things like that we might not otherwise know. And then it's up to the board to make their decisions based on that information.
Again, he also stated again that he lives in Easthampton. I'll tell you right now that that's not a true statement. I've been to that house. I've knocked on the door. I've been all over that place. The only thing, he stays there a few nights. He did answer a call the other night. It was a fire call. The pickup's parked there most of the time, and that's about it. I understand that's supposed to be his residence. Well, let's make it and let's respond to calls. If, in fact, that's his residence, why has he not responded on these numerous calls I have? And these calls I pick up on a scanner, find them all the time. A lot of these all of a sudden are happening during the day. I've got one here Wednesday at 1:40 in the afternoon, no response out of Southampton ambulance. And some of these are pretty serious calls. 3:48, 9:10, stroke symptoms. Nobody went. Anybody with any medical knowledge would know these are pretty nasty calls. They need an EMT there. They need somebody there. 9:13, 3 o'clock in the morning. Not one person responded from the town of Southampton to an altered mental status, which could be anything from a heart attack to somebody having a stroke. Come on. 3 o'clock in the morning, there isn't one EMT that can respond? Severe back pain, 2 minutes of midnight.
What day was that?
That was 9:14.
Is it possible, Mr. Cleta, that you could let us look at that list after, so perhaps we could do a little of our own research?
I got these, you know, it was kind of like the email I got back from Mr. Konecki who says, hey, you were right about that call, I checked it out. I don't make these up.
I don't think that you do, and I think it's important that this kind of stuff is brought to our attention as
You know-
often or not as possible.
I've been an EMT for a long time. I've been a chief. I've worked this town. I care for the people of this town. And that's my whole reason I'm here. I don't care who's chief, but if we cannot get the proper care and coverage, and I heard Pat Eline say that they are striving to do better, but there's days there is no call coverage. And that's why I told you to look back into that document you signed with the state. Because I believe part of that was to provide paramedic level coverage Sunday through Saturday during the morning shift and respond EMT level, basic level, after hours.
Yeah, I've got that down, so I'll check into that.
If that's part of the agreement and we're not following that, the next time the state comes in, you're not even going to have a basic ambulance here. And that's going to be a real sorry day for us.
Thank you, Mr. Kalita.
Thank you for listening.
Would you mind either making copies of your notes so that I could reference them, or
What do you want, just the dates and times?
that would be helpful?
Yeah, I would ask them.
Thank you. Anybody else for open time for the public? George? Are you sure? Do you want me to come back? Okay. Oh, move it down? Yeah, it comes and goes, yeah. All right, so we're going to move on to, maybe we should put it on twice. We're going to move on to the Board of Selectmen retreat. It's been scheduled for October 24th from 9 a.m. to, are you raising your hand?
No, I was waiting for you to finish the time, and then I was going to insert the word "at the library."
Oh, okay. So October 24th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the library. Although our meetings are posted and public by nature, we will not be making any decisions at this meeting. It's a working meeting. We're going to hear from a few speakers on selected topics and discuss Board of Selectmen goals for the town. Moving forward, we'll share a summary of the event and bring our goals back to the next meeting for announcement. There are a few issues that we will talk about, and I'm wondering if the board has any others. Currently, I'd like to see some talk about planning and economic development, financing, and license laws. Is there anything else that the board would like to see discussed, or goals that I haven't mentioned?
We should have some goals for the board, I think, listed on there.
Like personal goals?
Well, just
or-
we as a board, what we want to accomplish, because we go from agenda to agenda a lot of times, and I think we should have a set of goals ourselves.
Okay. Do you have something specific?
Not yet, but I will before then.
So one thing specific that I guess I will say that is a goal for me as a member of the Board of Selectmen is to move into a form of a functionality of the town that actually works, because I don't think that what we have now actually works. So I would like to try and come up with a plan that we're all in favor of, that gives maybe the town administrator a little bit more power. So to wait for, maybe power isn't the right word, but to wait every 2 weeks for us to make a decision on a PCF, that doesn't make any sense. It would make much more sense to have that paperwork go to the town administrator, who's in the building all the time, who sees the departments all the time, and can sign off on that paperwork on behalf of us. So I'm not exactly sure what it looks like, but after the last 2.5 years, I can see that this form, this way it's going right now, doesn't work. And so one of my goals on the Board of Selectmen is to come up with a function of the town that will work. Anybody else? Okay. So October 24th from 9 to 2 at the library, and if you're lucky, I'll make you some cookies. Next,
And if we're not, Charlie will?
You're not lucky now.
Next is the bylaw ad hoc committee. We established this committee a few weeks ago. We still have a few openings to fill before we can move forward. Heather had spoke about this during her town Town Administrator report. We have 2 parties currently interested, Jim Palermo and Mrs. Ahart, and we need at least 1 more to proceed with a quorum. The very first project for this group will be to review other communities' organization of their bylaws, outline an organization for our bylaw format, and rearrange and then send to vote at a town meeting. Are there any other ideas that the board wishes to have included?
Do we need a representative from the committee?
I think we
Board?
decided that we would alternate going, somebody would get to each meeting.
Sounds good to me.
So once that's established and there's some, maybe we can get people to set some dates and then we can
Do something.
assign ourselves.
Okay.
Okay. I have asked that the chief come in later since we have an executive session with him, so we're going to skip over 5B and put that at the end of the agenda in open time. The next item for discussion is the police chief's position. So as many of you are aware, at our last Board of Selectmen meeting, the police chief announced his retirement, which will be in mid-October. In order to be proactive while figuring out how the board wishes to proceed with the position, the board has been asked to consider appointing an interim police chief to take effect on October 20th, 2015 at midnight, to continue until such time that either the interim or another candidate is appointed. In addition, the Board of Selectmen must decide how they wish to proceed with this position. We have a couple of options. We need to write a job description and draft a contract. We need to choose a selection method. Do we want to use a screening committee or some other assessment center? Popular vote? I don't know. And lastly, we need to decide what job description we wish to use. Heather's collected about 50 of them from the Commonwealth, and, yeah.
50.
Sorry, John, I was aiming for 100, but they stopped coming in.
We've also asked the police chief to make some comments as well. The biggest question on the table seems to be whether or not the board wishes to add a residency requirement to this position.
If we add a residency requirement, obviously, we're going to make it very clear.
Yes.
So, the first thing is, do you wish to appoint an interim
Yes.
police chief?
We have
And
to.
if so, who would you choose to appoint? At this current time, the lieutenant is Officer Goyette, Lieutenant Goyette, and our sergeant is Sergeant Illingsworth.
So,
I make a motion to appoint Lieutenant Goyette as the acting police chief.
So, for Kate's sake, there's a motion on the floor by Charlie to appoint Lieutenant Goyette as the interim police chief. Is there a
I
second?
want to second it for the conversation.
So there's a second by John Martin, and it's open to discussion.
He is the leading ranking officer, correct? Okay. Have you discussed it with him, if there would be an interest on his part?
I discussed it with him. There is definitely an interest.
Okay. Have you discussed it with the chief as far as,
I have discussed it with the chief, with Heather,
okay, and
and he seems accepting that's a move. I've actually spoken to a few of the other officers, too,
okay,
as to how they felt about it. And I didn't get anybody that was negative about this.
okay. And I have heard no negative things about him since I've been in town, so I think as the ranking officer, he deserves the opportunity to be the interim.
I may date myself and him, but he was my DARE officer in 5th grade.
And I heard that from some people, too.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion in regards to appointing Lieutenant Goyette as the acting chief?
I think he would do an excellent job, and I feel confident that he would fulfill the position.
May I ask, should we not vote on this contingent on him signing a contract with us?
That's fine, if that's what you want.
So Charlie, just on this piece, I did talk to town council today on that part, and she said that a lot of times when you appoint someone interim, you don't actually do a contract. You might negotiate salary and any other details, but they don't always do a contract. It's totally up to the purview of the board whether or not they wish to do one. Please note at this time, no police chief, at least to the record we have, because Chief Silvernail's been here so long, that he has not had a contract. So we'd be going into a new territory. But it's totally up to the board how they wish to proceed. I'm just giving you all the information I have.
I would be much more comfortable if we have a contract so we don't start thinking and second-guessing what somebody implied and meant.
Yeah,
So would you like to amend your motion to appoint Lieutenant Goyette as the acting chief of police contingent on?
A signed contract between the Board of Selectmen and himself.
Did you get that, Kate?
And I'll amend my second then. And I think it could be a memo of agreement, just a basic contract form that lays out what we expect, so he understands it.
Yeah, I'm not talking the 25-page.
Right, not like we're going to have the normal
Right.
permanent chief sign, correct, yeah. And this is a short-term contract.
So there's a motion and a second. All those in favor of appointing Lieutenant Goya as the acting chief of police effective October 20th, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions.
And obviously, it's contingent upon him accepting.
Right. The next issue is how do you wish to move forward with hiring a new chief of police? So in the past, when we've hired a fire department, a fire chief, and a highway superintendent, a town administrator, there's been a screening committee. I would suggest that we don't sway from past practice, although I'm always a proponent of promoting from within. I think in order for us to be transparent and consistent, it would benefit us to have a screening committee, perhaps with Chief Silvernail, someone from the Board of Selectmen, members of the community who wish to be a part of that. That's my own opinion, and I'm wondering what the rest of the board would like to do.
I want to ask a question, probably directed to Heather. Heather, is there a way that we can, can't talk straight, can we rewind the tape? Can we do the job description, post a position for internal candidates only for a period of, say, 2 weeks, have the committee, if that's the way we go, or us, review these folks, and if there is a well-qualified internal candidate, then we go ahead and do a contract with that particular individual, and if there is not, or no interest, let's say, then we go to the outside applicants. So a two-step process to give the internal applicants the first opportunity.
From the information I have, the short answer, John, is going to be no. Reason one, as far as I understand the personnel policy procedures, there's no provision that allows you to post internally only. They're working on it for their revision, so that is an option moving forward. The second thing is everyone I've spoken to, and I've spoken to quite a few communities, even those who hire internally, they post worldwide first, and then they may, the community may decide that, if someone's qualified internally, they'll go that way. The other option that a lot of communities have done who have actually hired internally is they've hired assessment centers. So once the applications came in, they sent them over to assessment center, Badge Quest. Badge Quest was used a lot. Wayne Sampson's another gentleman. They send them to these folks or public safety, and essentially they vet the candidates and make sure that they're actually capable to do the job itself. And then they give a recommendation back to the Board of Selectmen that, yes, these folks internally are qualified to take on as police chief or not.
Wouldn't we do that evaluation regardless of internal or external candidate?
You probably could, but regardless, these are all external firms, and they seem to work exclusively with public safety. They don't work with, like a town administrator search. And my understanding from these communities is this is often what they've used in place of a screening committee.
I guess what I was asking, whether it's an internal candidate for the police chief or external, we would want to get an outside agency to come in and do an evaluation in a complete background check.
So why do we need to do that for the police chief, but we didn't have to do it for the fire chief or the highway department? I mean, we didn't post internally for the highway department. We didn't post internally only for the fire chief. So why do we have to post internally only for the police department?
I did it in the form of a question.
I just wondered. I guess my whole thing is I would prefer to be consistent.
Oh, I agree with you, but we should better ourselves each time we do something like this to improve the process. I'm not against it. I just want to make sure our folks internally get at least a fair shake. And if things are equal, they put in a lot of time and energy in the department. So, and I guess we can look at it from that point of view if we have to go out for a full search.
What's the cost of doing something like that?
I was going to say, I've been involved in a lot of national searches where the internal candidate is given the position, and you could spend thousands and ten thousands of dollars. So, that's the other way of looking at it. But that's my opinion, so I just want to bring it up. Anybody else?
Anybody else?
We've got two board members behind you.
One. Shannon's not here.
Um,
No.
I think that, we should stay internal. I think we'd save a lot of money. I think, wasn't it like $50,000 to find Diana, the last, that was a lot of money.
You spent $50,000 to find one person?
I was not on the board at that time, but they spent thousands and thousands of dollars to hire her, to find her. It was big money,
Wow.
yeah.
Feel free to come to the microphone, George.
What's the ruling on just appointing this guy
You
full-time?
need to point that down.
What's the rulings on just appointing this guy full-time, period?
You have to, per the bylaws, you have to post the job.
We have to,
You have to post the job in 3 places. You have to follow the rules, and that's fine. I mean, whether you want to hire internally or not, you post the job for one day in the Hampshire Gazette. I mean,
let's not go through what we're going,
If those are the rules,
keep myself,
pardon?
all right? Let's not go through what we're doing next door.
Yeah.
Again, bringing somebody in from outside and setting the whole thing off.
I think that we have some really great internal candidates. There's no denying that.
Yeah.
There's no denying that. But you want to make sure that you are, have fair and equitable treatment and that we follow the rules the right way. The issue is, how do you want to hire this person? Do you want to have a screening committee made up of the way we have done it in the past, or do you want to handle it as a board on our own?
I
Do you want to
personally-
hire somebody to come in and do it, which will cost money? And if we're all in agreement that we have good internal candidates, and a police chief who's happy to help,
I think we do it as the Board of Selectmen with the retiring police chief. We become the screening committee.
so the only issue that I have with that is the time commitment that it will entail. And so, part of that is if you have a group of people who can meet on an off night to go through those things, then the time commitment to get a quorum of us together is far less. And since we can barely get ourselves together, it might be helpful to have, 2 of us and the police chief and, somebody else. I'm sure there's a police chief somewhere in town that lives here, or someone that could be involved.
We could even ask for assistance from a police chief out of town that works for us.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, if the PQB rules say that we have to do that, we need to follow them, I agree 100%, because we don't want to start vacillating back to the old ways.
Right.
But if we're interviewing internal candidates, that gives us the opportunity to give them credit for the service. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Liz?
Yes?
Just a couple things, John. Number one, when we did the building commissioner, what we ended up doing was the old building commissioner and myself received all the applications. We made sure they met the qualifications, and then we called all the references once the board reviewed things. I'm sure I could work with someone to do the same thing. I would caution about staying with having the current police chief on, only because especially if you're going with internal, I would be concerned about, he may not even do it on purpose, but, I have 2 employees, Liz and John, and, I like Liz just a little more than John, so Liz is going to get my vote higher. It's not going to be as subjective. And we have had other police chiefs who are retired who have reached out to me already through this search that would be more than willing to assist in any which way possible.
Yeah, I think it's critical to have that kind of experience on the committee.
Heather, I don't mind partnering up with you to go over the applicants and that, and then we can get back together as a group with another police chief and do that. Doesn't bother me at all.
So you're saying not a screening committee, just you all the same as the building inspector?
Well, we'll end up as the selectmen being the screening committee.
Right. It's going to take us more time, but it's such a critical position, we'll just have to find the time to do it.
Okay. Do you want to vote on how to, George? You're welcome to speak, you just have to come to the microphone. I have a hard time telling people they can't speak.
You have an internal screening committee, you could count on me.
Ooh.
Wow. Somebody put it in the minutes, put it in the
I'll write it
minutes that
down.
George
I got it.
Rancourt has
George
volunteered. Write it down.
There's gonna be another citizen in town here.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
all right.
I agree.
I have no problem with you being on the committee to help.
I think it's a good idea.
Yep.
I think a screening
Because you
committee with
speak your
outside
mind.
people is a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, there's your first volunteer.
There it is.
So I guess I'm confused now, Liz.
line went
Is the board creating a formalized screening committee?
Is the board, so I want to make sure we're clear. Are we creating a formalized screening committee? Or are you not?
Do we need it to be formalized? Or
you
just
need
say
to-
the board is the committee that will do the final interview?
Well, the board doesn't have to become a committee.
Right.
You guys are the board and you
Need
have the
to
ultimate
ask people
decisions.
to become part of a screening committee.
But there's going to be a distinction between having Peter, Sally, and Mary review things. I mean, the screening committees generally, they have the right to meet in executive session, they're an ad hoc committee, they have a right to call people in, interview them. And I don't think that, my understanding from what I'm hearing is those aren't the powers that you're conveying with this group. You're simply saying, please make sure you date stamp the applications when they come in. Here's your checklist. If they don't meet the checklist, please put them in pile B.
And, you know, you bring up a good point, because when we did this for town administrator, a lot of the candidates did not want to be identified early on in the process, so we met in executive session, so we could discuss it, screen the people out, make some calls. Some of the people dropped out, so having that executive session ability, I think, is real important, because you may get a police chief in a neighboring town that only wants his name out there or her name out there if they're in the last final 2 or 3. So that's, no, you got a good point there, so I think we need to do that. And we could be part of the screening committee
I
if we
think there
wanted to,
was 2 of
or,
us on each one,
yeah.
or one of us
Right.
at least. Okay.
So do we want to rethink it and have a screening committee with a couple of people from the board on there as liaison, and then the final decision, say the final, I'll say 3 or 4 candidates, whatever number we pick, come to the full board where we get the public involved to come in and they can listen to the same information we're getting? Because I think we want as much public input on this, and I know we could be all night in public input, but I think it's important enough that we do it, because the new police chief, him or her, hopefully is going to be here for a long, long time.
You got to get them up at the podium.
So that would be my next, that would be the next, so first, let's start with this. So are we in agreeance that we need to form a screening committee?
Yes.
Ask for members of the community. I'm happy to be on that committee, to hire the police chief. I enjoyed it last time. I'm not sure my husband did, but I'm happy to help.
And I'd like to be on there. I don't know if you,
I got to be on there.
So 3 of
I'll
us
be on
can't,
there.
we'll have a quorum. So Charlie, why don't you go ahead and take over, and if there's a night that one of you can't go, I'm happy to sit in. In the meantime, I think, George, if you could just put your formal request into Heather to be a part of that committee, we'll accept you as the first person.
I'll be on the committee too.
and I hope,
Can't.
you can't,
That's why I can't, because we can't all be on the committee.
it's a quorum. We can swap out if we need
But I
to.
like to be on the committee.
Jackie wants to be on the committee.
Now you want to be on a committee.
So Liz,
I'm on a lot of committees, don't you? know.
Liz,
Yes.
since you have, since the board has made their decision of putting an interim in place, my recommendation, the Board of Selectmen at this point would be, take some time to figure out what you want to do with the screening committee. There's no rush.
Got it.
As long as everything works out, someone's going to be there on October 20th as interim police chief, and it's indefinite. It's
This
for a
might be the
period of
first time we're
time.
ahead of the 8 ball, though,
It's-
Heather. Let's not deter us,
It's
okay?
for the period of time until you guys decide whether that person should be moved up or whether you're going to hire someone else.
Okay.
Also, to keep in mind, too, is, you know, we need to, I believe in the past, you guys have actually come up with a actual charge to the screening committee, so I'd have to put that together. I wasn't aware that was the direction you guys were going tonight, so I didn't have that ready. And you also want to make sure, you know, figure out, are you guys putting together your job description for this position, or are you going to let the screening committee put together that job description? Because before you even send out the job description, one of the things on it is what the process is. Is this going to the Board of Selectmen? Is it going to the town administrator? Is this going to the screening committee themselves? People need to know when they even apply, and you need to have all that in place first. But again, provided who you've offered the interim position to takes a contingent upon you guys coming to an agreement, I think you guys have something in place. So as important as this is, let's not rush.
Fair enough.
And let
And
me,
if we're going to put the job description together, we need to know if you want this person to live in town or not.
a thought on the job description, and I don't want to insult anybody in the audience, but I think if we're going to put a committee together, it should be a committee of people who have knowledge or background or some kind of experience related to the position. In that committee, once that committee's together, if it made up of those type of members, I think that would be the place where the job description could get reviewed, and a draft come before the board so we can approve it. Because 5 of us up here are probably going to have less knowledge or experience than this committee's going to have, because if we select the committee properly, we'll have a lot of experience and background there. So how about if they put the job description together based on maybe some examples of the 50 that Heather has, and they can come back to us saying, here's what we really think, and we could tweak it if we need to. My thought.
I concur. Is there any other thoughts? Do you want the police chief to live in town? Do you not want the police chief
Well,
to
it's
live in
early,
town?
it's early
It's
for
too
that.
early.
Too
talk
early to
about
talk
that.
about that.
That's
Okay.
Yeah. And I think the committee can come to a meeting with us before they, maybe at their first session, so that we can just talk back and forth, say, here's what we're looking for in general. Now it's up to you to go there and put this together in a job description. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay.
Any other conversation about the police chief position? We're going to move on to loose livestock. Charlie's going to update us about the roaming cows. Charlie?
That comes down a subject, doesn't it, Charlie?
I'm telling you, man. Police department showed up at my house the other day.
Were they your cows?
They were not my cows. And they were concerned about the fact that the bovine, photograph included,
The what? What's it called?
bovine, were meandering through the town cemetery. They were on Route 10.
Can we show a picture? Hold on. Never mind. It's just a funny picture.
Hone in on it.
Here's the picture of the roaming cow. It just,
And it gives
Thanks.
credit
It's a
to,
nice picture, but I didn't know that the cow's name was Robert.
it says, it says Robert Floyd. He gets credit for the photograph.
I got you. All right, keep going.
Wasn't my doing. But anyways, police department was kind of frustrated. It was like, evidently they've spoken to this individual who owns the cows a few times, and it's just a reoccurring theme. So they asked me if I would research and find out if there's some mechanism that we could utilize as the selectmen to make this individual understand the fact that this is serious, even though we're laughing about it and all the rest of that, cows in town property, damaging town property, and so on and so forth, need to be addressed. So I found a general law under property that actually addressed this kinds of situations. Basically, what happens is that selectmen send a notice to the property owner that if this continues, they become responsible for damages to town property, and they can actually have a criminal complaint brought against them with the police department. So the thought was, why don't we send this individual a letter and put them on notice? And then if there's damage to the cemetery and that, the cemetery commission will have a mechanism to proceed to get the damages collected and corrected.
And there's a $10 fine, is it per
There's
day?
a $10 fine. This gives you an idea how old this general law is.
Yeah, 1856
Is
or
that per
something.
cow or is that per incident?
I don't know. I
I
did
thought
not,
it was $10 per day or something.
I did not
cow?
go into the case record of this to find out what the trials were about, because I didn't think it was worth the $10.
Okay.
But anyways, it puts them on notice, and it also lets the general public know the fact that we are paying attention to this. And if someone that has property next door wants, they can take this law also and serve notice on the owner of the cows.
So given that information, I have a letter that the board can either vote to send or not to send. And it says, our police department has brought to our attention that your cattle that you keep on property located off High Street in Southampton has been running loose on numerous occasions. There has been some 5 reports in September as well as previous months. The reports indicated that these animals were on the state highway as well as private and town-owned land. This letter is to serve you notice under Mass General Law, Chapter 266, Section 188, domestic animals trespass on land as pertains to town-owned property. Failure to address this concern may result in legal action. If there are no concerns, then I would accept a motion to send this letter to the cow's rightful owner.
So moved.
Second? I've got a question.
There's a motion by John Martin and a second by Charlie Kinnicky to send the letter to cow's owner.
think it's
open for
It's the
discussion.
other way around, but that's okay.
The owner of the cow,
Yeah.
never
Now,
mind.
has this gentleman been spoken with about these cows?
Yes, with the police department numerous times. If you'd like, I have all the police reports. They had an incident July 11th, July 13th, July 16th, then we get into September 8th, September 13th, September 15th, September 16th, September 17th.
Okay.
And what are his comments?
My understanding is he's accusing people of leaving the gates open, stuff of that nature. It's his responsibility to make sure that they don't get wandering around out there.
It's
so
pointing fingers, so,
It's everyone else's fault.
so this letter should bring that to the forefront?
So there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I never thought I'd be on a selectmen's board writing such a letter.
All those in favor of mailing said letter, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Does it matter where we sign it?
No, just Jackie's.
The next issue we have, item, is a letter of condolence to Amherst. As many of you have heard, the town of Amherst has lost their town administrator suddenly. The MMA article reported Amherst Town Manager John Musante died suddenly on Sunday morning after suffering a medical emergency at his home. He was 53. John was part of Amherst town government for 14 years. The MMA also wrote that prior to his 5 years as town manager in Amherst, Musante had served as the town's assistant town manager for 3 years and finance director for 6 years. He was also the finance director in Northampton and the budget director and chief of staff in New Bedford. He served as the first town manager in Lenox in the 1990s. We have here a letter that we would like to send to the town of Amherst, which reads, "Dear members of the Select Board, it is with heavy hearts that we write to express our condolences for the loss of Town Manager John Musante. John contributed much over the years and indeed helped to make Amherst a very special community. He was known and loved within the Pioneer Valley as well, and we are deeply saddened by his passing." I would accept a motion by the board to sign that letter.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Liz, can you just repeat the motion? Who made it? Seconded?
There's a motion to sign the letter of condolence to Amherst by John Martin and a second by Charlie Konecki.
Thank you.
Next, we have PCFs. The first is a resignation from the fire department of Corey Ducharme. It's been previously signed off by the PQB department head and accountant. I would accept a motion to sign the resignation for Corey Ducharme in the fire department.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Who was the second? I didn't hear. John?
Can I see that? Just wanna get the name right.
This one's you.
Oh, Ducharme.
Can you do this one?
Which one am I at?
The next PCF.
Okay, we have a PCF for Geraldine Swanson, Health Director, new hire. And it's a change from temp to permanent. Rate is $21.50 an hour for 21 hours a week, effective 9/1/2015. So we're looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay, any discussion?
Aye.
All in favor, whoops,
What was the effective date on that?
9/1/2015.
Because I thought, my understanding from the votes of the Board of Selectmen in past meetings was, and from PBB, that a PCF or anything of the sorts does not become effective until the day after the last body signs.
I agree, but I thought they were going to change the form so that the new form would specify that.
They did change the form, they might have used an older form, but I just didn't know if the board wanted to note date when it becomes effective.
Well, if everybody was on notice that it had to be when the form was signed. And if the new form is out there, was everybody notified of that, Heather?
They were.
Okay.
So it's effective tomorrow.
Well, this says 9/1, so it'll be effective tomorrow. So we should amend the motion to have it effective tomorrow. Jackie, did you make the motion?
Yes.
So can you amend it to make this effective tomorrow rather than 9/1? To
Okay.
go along with the new PQB policy?
I amended to make it effective for tomorrow,
Okay, and 23rd, right?
the 23rd.
And you
I'll second it.
amend your second, okay. Any conversation? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay.
All right, so,
You're welcome to come to the microphone, George.
Liz, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
There was supposed to be a letter of endorsement for the police department on a grant.
It's on there.
Coming.
Okay, I didn't see it on the,
Oh, you know what, I'll just make.
You don't have the most revised agenda, Charlie.
I can't keep up with this.
Well,
George?
when you ask for things to be added, you should just assume that once you've asked, they go.
George,
There.
let's get back, go ahead, George.
Referring to a question about the police chief position.
You want to go backwards?
Yes, just for a second.
Sure.
From what I understand, we didn't appoint,
We did appoint Lieutenant Goya as the acting police chief, effective on October 21st, the day that,
that is correct now,
Yes.
after all that's gone through.
Assuming contract,
assuming he says yes
Signed,
to that,
yes.
but yes.
Right.
Yeah, as long as we have a police chief on
Yes.
10/20.
We do, on 10,
Absolutely.
yes, absolutely.
That's,
We-
And
yes.
George, the only reason for the contract is because I'm trying to get this to be standard business practice.
yeah, but, see, I subscribe to a thing called KISS.
keep it simple,
I'm
stupid.
trying, man.
It's,
It'll be a one-pager.
yeah, with government, nothing is simple,
We're going to overcome that.
nothing.
So this isn't on the agenda, Heather, but can we sign the PCF for as the Board of Selectmen and the appointing authority for that position tonight?
Well, you can because the appointment of him was on there.
Okay.
And
So-
I would just sign right now just the first section as the department
gotcha,
head, and then
yes.
wait until it comes back from everyone else
So
as the,
I have a PCF for the acting police chief for Michael Goyette as a full-time temporary position effective on October 20th, but that's not on here. Hold on, time out. The date isn't on here, Heather, effective what? Can I put an effective date?
It should be. It's in the body.
Is that the new form?
Yeah.
Find it?
It's probably one of the paragraphs.
Oh, this appointment will go into effect, I'm just going to underline it because, okay, so I would accept a motion to sign the PCF for a full-time temporary position of Michael Goyette to the acting police chief effective October 20th,
Again, pending the
pending the,
memo of agreement is signed by both parties?
yes.
Okay. I'll
There a
make the motion.
There's a motion made, is there, by John Martin?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now that's really official, George. Oh, there's nobody there. Okay, we have no PRFs, no licenses, no contracts. We have a disclosure form for Randall Kemp. We just received this disclosure form in relation to 99 Gilbert Road. The board needs to make a determination whether to allow Randall to continue, given that we have the disclosure, reassign the work to someone else in relation to the project, or to handle the work as the Board of Selectmen. Generally, we get disclosures from Randall regularly. He's very open and honest with everyone involved and continues to submit these as needed.
I move that we just allow him to continue doing his work.
So there's a motion on the floor to sign the disclosure and allow Randall to continue to the work. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. We have a letter of support for a police grant. The police are applying for a grant from Walmart, and they need a letter that states that they are authorized by the town to seek grant funds. The letter reads, "To whom it may concern, this letter is to verify that the town of Southampton, Massachusetts is a certified agency as recognized by the state of Massachusetts. The town of Southampton was officially incorporated in 1753. The Southampton Police Department is authorized by the town to request funding." Is there a motion to sign the grant, or the letter for the grant?
I make a motion to sign the letter.
Is there a second?
I'll second it for the conversation.
Sure.
What is the grant for?
Good question.
It is basically, they're really small grants, and they still need to designate what it's for exactly. These large corporations will sometimes fund small communities with specialized projects. At this point in time, the police department is taking a new vigor into looking for grants. This is only one that they've been looking at, and I think this is something we should encourage them to do.
Do we know how much it's for?
We don't at this point in time. They need to take and get the paperwork in order to them so that they can get back and find out if they're, one, eligible. One of our biggest handicaps in this town is our capital income is too high. But I figure, if they want to try for this and they can get it going, they can get back to us with particulars afterwards, so be it.
Yeah, as long as they get back to us. I mean, I don't know if these grants come with restrictions that we want to know about up front or not.
Mr. Cleaver, you're welcome to speak. You just have to come to the microphone.
Bill Cleaver, 106 Gilbert Road. Those grants are available. When I was over there as fire chief, I applied, I believe, for 3 of them, and usually got all that I applied for. All you have to do is write a narrative, what it's for, and Walmart is real good, and they'll help you out any way they can.
So you got the Walmart grants also?
Yes.
And were they unrestricted?
You had to write a reason why, and they went to a review board, and they decided whether or not your reason was okay. They won't help out with a budget, like if you put, I want $1,000 for my budget, they won't do it. But like I've gotten turnout gear out of it, I got gloves, I got CPR mannequins, I've got helmets, and you just tell them why you need it, what it's for, and they're usually pretty
So
good.
if it's a worthy issue, they'll,
I thought it was. I think the biggest grant I got out of there was like maybe $1,200, $1,300.
it's good
It's not
money.
much, but it's something that helps.
Yeah, I agree.
Very good. So there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I think this is,
A great direction.
yes, you couldn't said it any better.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Liz, who made the motion? Charlie or John?
Charlie and John second it.
Thank you.
Did it, John and Charlie.
You have payroll warrants, if someone would like to read them.
Want to read them?
No, go ahead, John.
Okay, payroll warrant 16-11 for $39,411.55. Payroll warrant 16-13, $39,295.94. Another payroll, one's a P and one's a PD. What's the difference?
Payroll deduction.
Oh, okay. So the first 2 are payroll deductions. The third one here is P 16-13 for $235,014.88, and warrant 16-12 for $435,488.05. That's it.
That's the motion to sign. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
There's minutes from September 8th. Has everyone had a chance to review them? I
Yes.
would accept a motion to approve the minutes from September 8th.
I move it.
Who moved?
Charlie,
Charlie made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
John seconded it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our next meeting is on October 6th. Is it a regular meeting at 6:30?
It's up to the board.
Is there a lot
If-
on the agenda?
Because the 2 CBAs for today ended up getting rescheduled, if nothing else, the police are available on October 6th. I've already confirmed. So you will have collective bargaining with police and dispatch for the 6th.
Is there anything else on the agenda right now?
I don't have it written yet, I'm sorry.
So do you want to meet at 6 or 6:30? Gentlemen?
I like 6 only because you get out early, if you don't have a big agenda.
So 6 o'clock?
Yeah.
Okay, on October 6th. The special town meeting warrant. Hold on. So, we need to schedule a meeting in order to review and approve the special town meeting warrant. We need to do that prior to October 6th. And it needs to be posted a minimum of 14 days prior to October 20th. So, when are you available next week?
Just pick a date, Liz.
I
Just
have
pick,
my calendar in front of me, but it would be fast,
I
right?
know, yeah, I'm not looking at this as taking long, because she'll email us the information long before we meet.
Is Monday too soon?
All I need is 48 hours, but the problem with Monday is you're going to be pushing my ability to get the warrant done.
What about the following Monday?
So the following Monday would be
Late?
the absolute last deadline. So at that point, I would have to have town council look at it before you guys get to sign off on it, and I have to get it to finance committee. Either way, I'm going to be pushing it, because I have to get finance committee the document before you guys get the document. And the question is what form you're going to get the document in. Even if you pulled it on Monday, it's not going to be the finalized, because I have to write so many blurbs and other pieces, attachments, and everything else.
No, I want next week. Okay. Well, why don't we just meet Tuesday?
Next Tuesday I won't be here.
We only need 3 of us. Tuesday, okay?
Works for me.
What's the date?
29th.
the desire of the board is.
Well, it's a Tuesday, so
Yeah, 29th.
Tuesday at 6:30,
What date is Tuesday?
the 29th. At 6:30. So you, Charlie and I can be here, you just need to get one more.
Do you want anything else on the agenda, or we're sticking strictly to special town meeting?
Just the special.
Just special
town
town meeting.
And would you guys be amendable if finance committee was available, if you guys could do a joint meeting if they don't have time before then?
That would be excellent.
Okay, excellent, thanks.
Okay.
meeting. Oh, Liz, on that grant letter, can I have it back to hard copy so I can give it to the police tomorrow?
And we also need to schedule Heather and Randall's annual performance reviews, since they were scheduled for the 20th, and we need to do them in open session like we have everyone else's. When would you like to do that? How about the meeting after that? After the 20th, not the 27th?
We have the October 6th is scheduled, and we have an October 20th
This
scheduled.
is collective bargaining, I don't want to do them then. I'm thinking go up,
November?
yeah, November 3rd.
Yeah.
Election day, but we have a meeting
But we
scheduled.
have a meeting anyway.
Okay.
November 3rd.
November 3rd, we'll do your performance evaluation and Randall's. Could you send out blank forms again for those of us who don't save them in there? Thanks. Special town meeting is on October 20th.
By the way, when we do this, can we have both folks send us a list of what they feel their accomplishments have been during the year?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Did you get all of them in here?
I believe so. There's a special sheet that you signed.
And we're going to go back to the Board of Selectmen Fire Chief goals. We've asked the fire chief to come meet with us. We're also moving to executive session after this, so we can do the fire chief all at one time. We wanted to review the goals that we have set for him, and he has also submitted a list of goals himself. The chief is here. You got his list of goals and job description earlier. And so here we are, chief, to talk about them. How are you?
Good, how are
Before
you?
we start, I just want to say, and I called you earlier, I had some CPR training today with my staff
Yep,
this morning, which went very well.
yeah, a lot of good feedback. Heard it was the best you've had.
Yeah, it was great. They did a great job. I don't know how the afternoon went. I know they were there with the paras, but the staff left feeling very confident that they
Excellent.
were trained well, and the timing of it couldn't have been better on a half-day while my staff was there. So thank
Perfect.
you very much. I appreciate the
Absolutely. Yeah, that
community
was-
outreach.
Rick Paul is one of the paramedics that works for us.
He did a great job.
did
And
a
Katie was there. She did a great
Yep.
job, and we saw some of the other equipment that you all use.
Yep, and we're actually looking to do more CPR for the community, just to let people, Southampton residents, whoever's interested,
Yep.
sign up for CPR, just because it's a good benefit that we can offer.
It was great. Thank you.
Glad to hear that. Thank you.
So we're going to move into goals and objectives. We had your performance evaluation, I don't know, a month or two ago at this
Yep.
point, and we had some goals and objectives at that point, but I think we all just wanted to make things a little bit more clear and have some conversation about it.
Sure.
So what we have in front of us, or you've had in your email, is a list of goals and objectives from the fire chief himself. One of the things I look for is a measurable goal. And so as I went through this, I know in your performance review, I had said, how do I get, how do you get to be a paramedic? And that may be a little above and beyond and unattainable, at the moment. And so one of the things that I really liked in your goals and objectives was, and I will read it, says, to put job descriptions into effect for all positions within the department. We have benchmarked other similar-sized communities for the resource material needed to move forward with this. One of the reasons that I really like this is that I think it's in line with the goals and objectives of the Board of Selectmen, the PQB, and the town in general. It's one thing that we're lacking,
Yes,
as a
I
town.
agree.
And
Yeah, I mean,
it's very hard to
Fire
put your
service has been in
fingers.
place for a long time, but, no previous person has put it in, and it's certainly about time we do it.
Yep, so I think that coming up with job descriptions for the positions in the fire department is certainly measurable, because
Yep.
if we ask for them by a certain day and they're not there, then we know they're not done, or, we can say, let's work on it, let's look at it together, how can the PQB be helpful? It's something that everybody, it's concrete and it's there, and
Yeah,
it's helpful.
I'm looking to just benchmark into the industry. I don't think
Yep.
we're looking to reinvent the wheel
Nope.
here. And I
But to
think we're
have
looking
them
to
on
get
paper somewhere.
Yeah, I think, get people who are experienced and putting them together, and other departments that have had them in line for quite some time, and
Right.
tailor them to Southampton.
John or Charlie, did you have any questions or concerns about, or additions to these, or any other goals that you would like to add? I really like that one. I think it's something that we're all working on anyway
Good.
together. It's helpful.
Yep.
I know that there's a lot here, Chief. I don't know that all of them are goals, rather, statements of what you're trying to achieve for you. Some of it's kind of out of our control, but although I don't disagree with you, the needing updated equipment and stuff like that. When I think of a goal, I kind of think of a personal
Well,
goal.
I guess I said it as a goal, just because, previously, coming into the department, granted, the previous chief was a highway mechanic for most of his career and was a chief for 1 year. But there was, none of the ladders have been tested in the whole time that they've been in service, which is, they're supposed to be tested every year. So they're tested. Pumps, they'd all failed when I'd come in. So, if we're talking goals of making equipment safe for our firefighters to use, because, you don't want to, I wouldn't expect my guys to use equipment that could hurt them. And I think it's our duty as a town, and liability certainly, to make sure that that equipment is in working order. And it hasn't been done previously. I think it's an admirable goal that I've been working towards, and if you would like it rephrased, I can certainly rephrase it for
So
you.
I was thinking that, so rather than I can read all this out loud, or I don't
Whichever
have to,
you'd like. Yep.
Rather than state it, our equipment is older and staying within the industry, would it be reasonable to request a preventative maintenance log or checklist that we, as the town is coming up with some preventative maintenance checklists and logs, if we had one to add from the fire department that says, the ladders as of October 1st failed, whatever, but December, they've passed because we've done this, or something to track.
Yeah, honestly, for any professional chief, it's something that you should do in the department. So,
Right.
and it's something that I've put into my budget. It's something that I've been doing since I've come in. It's, you can write something for it. It's budgeted line items is the way I have it, which I think is the way that it should be.
I don't disagree with you. I guess I'm just looking for, if you're saying that your goals are to update your fire equipment.
No,
or-
to maintain the testing, the required testing on equipment to ensure its safety for department use.
And so I'm saying that if you're going to maintain those things on a regular basis, there should be some sort of paper trail along with that.
Oh, there is, absolutely. I get documentation from the ladder company, I get documentation from the pump company, I get documentation from the SCBA flow testing.
Right.
I get
And is it all in one spot, is what I'm saying? If
It's
we're
all
trying
in-
to create, am I not saying what I'm looking for
Well,
clearly?
let me try to paraphrase. Like it says, continue to update fire and ambulance equipment. Do you have a priority list of the equipment that needs to be updated and the priority that you want to update it? And do you have a maintenance schedule?
I do, as far as like the maintenance should happen yearly on most of this equipment, and so that's happening yearly.
But do you have a listing of all the equipment that needs to be maintained, maybe a checkbox every
Yes.
6 every year? So that would help you.
And it's to the schedule of whoever does it. So if the ladder guy says, hey, I can come in August, then
Yeah.
it'll be August, and I'm trying to get them so it'll be a certain time every year.
So you have a log
Yes.
of all the equipment and when it should be done, quarterly, biannual, annually, or you could
Yeah,
have
there's a
that?
log of annual inspections.
Okay, so is that's something that we could see just so we know
Sure.
what they are? I mean, we don't want to get in the middle of it, it just helps us
No,
understand.
If you would like to see a log of what those inspections are, because like I say, they really haven't been done in the past,
Yep.
I'd be happy to share
But
that with you.
this helps us to say, okay, this is what the chief's goals are. Then after, 6 months or a year down the road, we can say, let's see that list again, chief, and see what was actually done versus what needed to be done.
Yes.
You can show us this was all done.
Yeah,
So
well, it's
that's
all
an
needed to be done, it
achievable
just
goal.
hasn't been done in the
Right.
past. Yep,
But the next year, you're going to be doing
make sure
it.
that it's done again.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the update fire and ambulance equipment, I'd like to see what equipment is in the worst shape and what you feel is the priority, so we can help you with the capital improvement committee.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy. I mean, if you come to any of the drills, we just tried to do some drafting. And, the equipment isn't really set up for drafting adequately. The tanker that we have, it would be much more useful if it had a jet dump. I know I had put in front of capital improvement to try and get it so that more people could operate it, because it's a 12-speed. It's one of those things that if you don't drive it every day, it's a difficult truck to drive.
So you were talking about that, putting an
Yeah,
automatic
yeah.
in that
So,
one, right?
so probably our most recently, and this has come through training, is just the equipment we have for drafting is not enough. And there's basically not good equipment for drafting operations. And so that's a priority for me, just
You
because we
have a
do.
list of what you need?
Sure.
And is that going to the capital improvement committee?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
I'd already sent you a copy,
Okay.
and I'd sent Charlie a copy, and I'm sure capital improvement will take a look at it.
Okay. That's the key, to get it over.
Yeah,
to
there's a
them.
whole list, there's probably $7,000 of itemized things that I'd sent to you.
And drafting is,
Drafting is when there's not a hydrant and you're looking to find another water supply. So we've probably had 4 or 5 mutual aid where we've gone to a different town to help them in drafting operations. And there certainly is, the occasion here where where there's not a hydrant, or if a hydrant failed, or if we needed additional water at a scene, we would have to do a tanker shuttle drafting operation.
okay.
Thanks. Are there other goals that people would like to discuss? Chief, is there anything on here that you want to bring to our attention that we're not talking about currently?
Well, I just, when I was hired, the ALS service had just gone into place. So there'd been, some work done to get it there. And so I kind of walked in on the first days of its opening up. We have a good group. As you know, we've had a bit of a bumpy road recently. But it's, if it's a focus of the town, if the people want that advanced level care, at the time, the select board who had put it in place had signed a document that had agreed to try and get like more shifts on and those kinds of things so that we could meet more calls with a Southampton ambulance. And if that's still a goal of the town, still a goal as the selectmen, I'm going to need your backing to put that forth again to get a second shift.
When we got our ambulance service, our paramedic service level back recently,
Yep.
when we do we have to sign a contract to get that service back?
No.
You don't sign a contract to get the paramedic level
With the
service back?
state?
With the state?
No, I mean, because we voluntarily had let the license go back to BLS, just because we wanted to ensure our paperwork, go through, make sure there wasn't any problems with any of the drug stuff, because the paperwork wasn't good for that. Did some training, which is always ongoing for our paramedics. And once, I really wanted to clean house in that regard. There had been some paperwork that had been benchmarked from Westfield, which works fine for Westfield, but when the state looked at it, they didn't like what they'd seen. So we redid all that, we redid all of our protocols, and it was really an opportunity for us to really benchmark off the best in the industry, bring it here to Southampton, professionalize our ambulance service, so we then don't end up in that problem again.
Okay, so when we get our paramedic service back, we
We
are
have it
still
back.
part of that, right, so we're still part of that original contract that the Board of
Correct.
Selectmen had signed?
Correct.
And what are the requirements for us to have coverage, a paramedic level
The
coverage?
initial is 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, which
Okay.
we're already at that level.
8 hours a day, 7 days a week, and those hours are always the day hours?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can look at the original contract. I hate to get into the exact wording because it's not in front of me.
Yep.
You have a copy, I have a copy. You know, if you have specific questions, you'll probably refer to it. It was, some of the wording when it was originally written was not good grammar, and you need to interpret some of it. Basically, it says, they started off with 5 days a week, went to 7 days a week, looking for that second shift.
And
is
there were
sort of
timeframes on it.
Is the final approach to it. Yeah, there's a 3-year time frame,
Okay. I'll have to
which
read
we're
that.
coming up right to the end of that would be October of
Okay, it's all
16.
becoming
So what happens when we
Clear
get to October 16th?
We would either need to try and renegotiate somehow with the state and tell them that we've been trying to meet the document that we'd signed with them, or we would fund a second shift.
So what if the state says, we're not renegotiating and we can't get the funding? Because obviously, we tried to get the funding recently and the town voted it down.
I think what they're interested in is a good faith effort. They don't want you to say, oh, I'm getting funding, and then not be genuine. I mean, hopefully the town entered into that agreement with a genuine attitude.
Yeah.
And so if the town truly wants the ALS service, and that's why I bring it up, if the town, if you selectmen, you know, if this, want the ALS service, it needs to be something that we're all working towards.
So here's my statement, I guess. Although the Board of Selectmen can support to put that on a warrant, I think that we are not the town. We act in the best interest of the town.
Of course.
And based on the last vote, the town didn't vote for this second shift. So when October 16th comes, we know we're not funding that second shift. Are we in the
Okay.
process of,
So next October.
oh,
So-
not this October?
Correct.
Oh, a year from now.
A year from now,
Okay,
yes,
'cause I
I'm
thought,
sorry.
are we in the process of?
You were
we
repeating the
missed-
Yeah.
right time back to me, but obviously, yeah.
Next October.
So it's next October.
Okay,
We're
because I was
supposed to
going to
have it-
ask, are you in the process of telling them we're not going to be able to fund the second shift?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
when I'd come before and you'd ask the question with Ed Colley and that group,
Yes.
I had approached because you guys had asked me to approach him, I approached him, he says it's too early to approach me.
Right.
You have until October of 2016. You need to show a concerted effort.
Okay.
I've certainly put forth a good plan, which is less cost to the town of Southampton than comparable towns that have the same populations. And the plan that I put forth had more hours of coverage.
Okay,
So the plan that I put forth is, if you want it, if the town wants it, is a great plan. It's cost-effective. It gets us some coverage so that if, you know, someone has a heart attack or you know, some other cerebral type thing where quality of life is really at risk when you're not there in a short period of time, we're not dependent on mutual aid. It would be ideal to have our guys in the station to respond.
okay. So I missed that year part.
Sure.
That
No,
was-
yep,
okay,
no problem.
Got it. Okay. Any other concerns you'd like to address, Chief, or?
Yeah, mostly just, you know, there's a couple other things that I'd put on there, just, you know, fostering, you know, positive relationships with folks. You know, the highway department I've got a great relationship with. I'd undertaken a project which had benefited them also, was a win-win for us both. You know, I have good working relationships with, you know, everyone in town, and, you know, just I think it's important that that is a goal for the department to continue those working relationships.
Very good. John, you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a question because it came up earlier in the
Sure.
meeting of if we have a call department or a volunteer department and the difference between, what's your thoughts? What do we call
Well, a
ourselves?
volunteer department means you don't pay anybody anything,
Right?
and a call department means you pay them like we're a call department.
Okay, so a call department, doesn't that have firemen or EMTs on call and they get a hourly stipend to be on call so that we're assured that somebody will come in during
Yeah,
that
but you
period of time?
have to, we pay a stipend for a 12-hour shift. So if you stay at home, don't drink, don't go out, are ready to answer the phone, have your radio on, you ready to answer up,
Yeah.
you get $30 for that night.
So say 6 PM to 6 AM or something like that?
Correct.
Okay, so do we have that now?
Yes, we do, but it's challenging because as soon as the town went to ALS, we used to, in the past, before we reorganized for paramedic, it used to be that all the basic EMTs would pick up that $30 a night. We had lots of people that do, coverage for nighttime, and we had sort of just our youngest members kind of forced, if you will, to take that nighttime coverage. All those young kids who were EMTs said, the town is going paramedic. I'm a member of this town and want to do the right thing. They all spent $5,000, $6,000 of their own money. They all joined a paramedic program. A paramedic program is a 2.5 to 3 year program. So we probably won't have those young kids back as active members until probably spring of 2016. But once they come back, now we've got local kids that are paramedics.
So we don't have paramedics continually on call?
No, because the thing with it being on calls, you also have to live in a response area.
Right.
So you have to live within 5 miles of the station, or however you want to term that as response area. And we're limited how many folks are available for that.
So when we were at a basic or intermediate level, if you will, the folks that were qualified to be on call were at a more basic or intermediate level? We had more of those folks available?
We had more of those folks, and now, a number of them have gone for the paramedic
So the
program.
pool of what we need at the higher level is not available, you say?
Is not, but it will be come the spring of 2016, because all these Southampton
Right.
kids who are covering calls as basics now are dedicated in their careers, because now as a paramedic service, you're a professional organization. It's now a career path that you're following. So they'll be paramedics, and they should be completed with their program approximately spring of 2016. So a lot of those will come back again. Our roster will bolster.
It's safe to assume that when you hire somebody new on, you're looking at them for the higher level?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there was, we had some consternation about, this gentleman, Rick Paul, who had, gone through and done this wonderful program today with CPR.
Yep.
And he's got a lot of available hours, and that was, can he do the job? Is he going to get along with the department, liability to the town? He's doing really well with the department now, and he's picking up a lot of call shifts, nighttime and day. Even our deputy chief, who was the EMS coordinator, didn't live in town, wasn't available for nighttime response.
Okay. I'm just looking at a list here that we're handed, because it came up earlier in the meeting, that there was a number of calls, and most of them are after 6 o'clock or in the early morning, that we didn't have any response to when it was toned out. I'm going to grab one right here. 9:22, 7:04 a.m. difficult breathing. That was today. So the call went out. We didn't have anybody to respond.
At what time?
7:04 a.m.
Yeah,
Again, I'm just
I
reading
remember
off.
that from breakfast.
Oh, that's when we were having breakfast?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why with a second shift, you would have somebody in the station at 6 o'clock
Okay.
until 2, and then from 2 until 10. As it is, our nighttime, 6 to 6, gets on at 6 and off at 6. So from 6 until 8, you don't have any coverage, and so you have to go to mutual aid.
Okay.
And so somebody can rabble-rouse and say, oh, there's no coverage, but there's no plan, there never was. We never had any coverage between those hours. The second shift that I'm promoting, if that's the direction the town still wants to go,
Right.
would have a provision, so we would cover, when I did the statistics, it was 83% of the calls with a second shift, and you would have covered that call at 7 in the morning.
Okay.
But there's no provision, now there's a gap, from 6 until 8, there's no one.
And these quickly appear to be all in that range of
Yeah,
timeframes.
well, I'm sure anybody who sits by a scanner and is trying to, throw dirt, that's where they would go.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
I have a question.
Sure.
You're talking about an administrative aid.
Yes.
To retain 30 employees as a secretary to maintain office duties, including filing, scheduling, and greeting the public. How many hours do you think, if we had a person come in and help you, would be,
I would say, I mean, it just, a lot of the duty, and that's why I included in my goals and objectives, all the duties of a fire chief, just because we'd mentioned paramedic before, and I think it's really important that if you are not aware of all the duties that a fire chief needs to do, there's really a litany. I gave you 4 pages of really stuff that is, I'm responsible for. I've been doing it for 25 years, do a good job with that. We have 30 members part-time, which any business that has 30 employees probably has a part-time secretary for scheduling, maybe for getting the payroll done. I mean, as it is, I pay, one of my deputies to come in on a Sunday so that we can get payroll out for Monday morning.
So what are you thinking? You're having somebody come in a couple hours a day?
Well, it was
or
something
every
that
other day, or-
originally Charlie had suggested it. There was some talk, I believe maybe Heather was involved in it, where they were thinking of splitting it between the police department and fire department. I think it would be an admirable thing. I think that there's certainly enough paperwork that could be handled by someone that was not high paid, like a secretary.
So if you had somebody 2 hours a day and say police had 2 hours a day, is
I
that
would
something?
probably start with like a 19 hours a week kind of thing, just under, unless you were going to split
Just
it.
for the fire or split?
I would say just for fire. I mean, that's sort of traditional. We could start with less, we could see how that works.
If I can, the meetings have been going on between the 2 chiefs and myself discussing this for some time, and with Heather, has been the fact that we're taking senior staff and having them do clerical work.
Yep.
And that makes no sense.
I agree.
Can I ask a question? I don't mean to interrupt, but for those like me who don't know, is that a tone? Is that what that means?
Yes,
That's what it sounds like?
That's what it sounds
is.
like.
And when there's a break between it, does that mean it's the second one?
could be.
Okay. I don't need to know what it is. I just wondered if it's the first time you hear it is the first tone. When people say it was toned out however many times.
Yep.
Is that what that means?
Yeah, that would mean it was second. And generally, depending on what we have on the schedule, I'll have it go to like a mutual aid. I don't like it, I don't
I was
want,
just going to say, do you need to respond?
I
You're all-
shouldn't.
Are you all set? You can leave us if you need to. You're okay?
One person, right now it needs to go to a mutual aid.
Okay.
Because for me to run out and grab an ambulance as one person, as a basic
Fair
EMT.
enough. I didn't want you to feel like you had to stay.
Yeah,
That's all I'm
well, I do feel like I have to stay because, I think it's important that you get the information. I
Okay.
know that we've set up this a long time ahead of time. I don't think that having the chief be the only one that responds, I mean, this is a team. This is 30 firefighters.
So we don't have anybody on call tonight?
I would have to check schedule.
Okay.
So
You have
ba-
meetings set up between Heather and the police, and you have senior people who are doing the paperwork, when in
Right.
reality, you should have one person who is able to take over the paperwork and help.
or 2 part-time people, 1 for fire, 1 for police, and that way we don't pay benefits and all the rest of that. But the idea is right now, it's getting to a point where we have to take and have some administrative aid available.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Jackie?
yes.
Okay. Other concerns or questions?
Yeah, we note your concern about a new facility, too. so-
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's just ongoing. I mean, the facility now, there's no room. I mean, it's nice when we do an open house, which we actually have an open house coming up, I want to say, and I hope I'm not misquoting, October 17th, which we hope to do like a Jaws of Life demonstration with a car. We'll have our student awareness of fire education. We'll have some tables there, do some, public education type things that'll be part of that open house. And we'll have some of the new equipment, because we've actually gotten some new equipment as we've gone through, including, as you probably saw today, one of the Lucas devices, which aids in CPR, which, as you found out today, is a challenging process to keep up
It
with.
was very tiring.
Yeah, so this is a great new tool that we just got, it's maybe almost a year old. So, we can show sort of the townspeople, what we've been working for. So
You know
that
what
open
time?
house is October 17th.
You know what time?
I don't have it in front of me, and I should
Or-
have. No, morning. It would be a Saturday, and it would be like a morning event.
Okay. I'll send you a
minute.
text when you're.
Yes, yep, and we'll get more information to it. I'll make a point to get it to you.
Charlie?
It's my intention that in December to bring up the topic of the public safety complex again, to look at reformulating a new committee to try and get into new directions to address this, because we can't just leave it sit as it sits.
Right.
Is it something I said?
Always.
Okay, so that was a good discussion.
Liz, can we just recap what the goals specifically are so that I can put something in writing? Everyone's on the same page. It can be attached to the annual review. So going forward, Chief knows these are the goals that we talked about that I'm looking to accomplish specifically, and the board says what goals, when you come to next year's performance review, everyone's on the same page.
So I think we're requesting copy of the maintenance log or something that says, John said it much more clearly than I
Yeah,
did.
well, that was a request. I wouldn't consider that a goal. If a goal is set so that we meet it, the goal is to make sure that our equipment that needs to be tested annually, is tested annually.
Right.
Is that agreed as a goal? And as far as an information request, I will supply you with that
That
information?
would be great.
Okay.
Am I missing any?
Yeah, so the first one I've
She takes better
documented
notes than I
was,
do.
you had actually talked about measurable goals. So the first one was to create job descriptions
thank
for all
you.
the
It's a big
members
start
and
on
also
that
work
here.
on a benchmark.
Right.
Yeah, job descriptions, we've already benchmarked from other communities, similar in size, similar in makeup, and we're looking to tailor those to meet Southampton and put those into place.
So can we request draft copies of them so we can look
How
at
about if you
them?
request the finished copy, and that's the goal for the year?
I guess I just want to have some checkpoints throughout the year.
I think Charlie might have some that you could look at if you were
Did I
interested in
not-
looking at
Did
them.
I not send you? the
I don't know,
job
I mean, I can
descriptions?
certainly, yeah, I mean,
That's a while back, though.
yeah, it's a while back. I would have to research, honestly, exactly what we have. Granby Fire Department is a good benchmark, just because they're a similar-sized community in the area. Chief is a good man, does a great job with that department. And those goals and objectives, if we don't have a copy that can be sent to you, we could
I know
send
I
them.
got a copy.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
to remind them.
So,
So we want completed
Completed
job
goals.
descriptions by your next performance review.
for Southampton Fire Department, because in other words, we need to tailor them to meet specifically Southampton.
And that will take a year,
No, probably not.
so we can get them when they're done.
Sure,
Okay, not in a year.
sure.
Okay. Go ahead, Heather, keep going.
So, John, you missed the second one, but I think what you guys came up with, or the chief's recommendation, was to do a goal to test and maintain a maintenance report. So saying when things have been done and actually making sure that things are tested when they were supposed to be done. Did I reiterate
Yeah,
that?
I-
I can't read my own writing, so I'm running into a problem.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to tailor a goal, I mean, because a maintenance report was never done by any previous chief, and I've identified that need and have been doing that, do you want a report written from that, or you just want to ensure that it's done?
I think we just want to ensure that it's done.
I would agree. And it is important, and it has been being done, and I can give you documentation of that if that's what you'd like.
That would be helpful.
Sure.
Thank
Be
you.
good.
Yep. So if you could just make notation for me to get that for you, just because if I write notes, it's going to be everywhere.
Did I-
That's all I have. There was discussion on second shift, and there was discussion call versus volunteer
Okay.
and administrative aid. But
Okay.
none of those seem to have come to a goal unless the board wishes to make anything a
Well,
specific
I
goal.
think, yeah, we're trying to add a goal just for ALS, just to make sure that the town is still behind that, selectmen are still behind that, because that's been a goal for me since I took the job, was to come up with the most cost-effective plan that I could come up with.
So when you say goal, though, Chief, I mean, is the goal in getting our support to get it on the,
To work
another
towards-
warrant
to-
again, or and ask the town again?
No, the goal is to meet the signed agreement that the selectmen had signed 3 years ago, to meet the requirements of that agreement as best as I can.
So I'm just a little confused, because if that's our goal, I mean, I don't think that I can say, when we go through the budget, you know, and say, okay, well, we need to take $163,000 right off the top to give to the fire department.
135, yeah.
I can't, the town said no.
Okay.
And so it would be hard for me to say, okay, police department, highway department, library, council on aging, Norris School, and everybody else, right off the bat, $135,000 goes to the fire department.
I understand, but would you then give up on it and say, oh, we're never going to
No,
do this?
but that's why I'm asking, is your goal to go to the town again and ask?
Sure.
Is that where we're headed with that?
The
Would
goal,
that
the
be-
goal is to continue in that direction,
Okay.
because from my charge when I came in as chief, I believe the townspeople want to have an advanced level service that gives them quality of life when an ambulance comes. I think that I have a duty, we have a duty to maintain that goal and work towards it. However, you know, it may be attainable, it may not be
Right,
attainable,
okay.
but it's a worthy goal, unless the town.
I just
you know,
wanted to
says-
be clear, I just wanted to be clear that your expectation wasn't during budget season, all of a sudden, we're gonna say, to heck with what everybody voted on, here you go. Instead, let's work towards, you know, making the town and showing them what they're gonna get for their money and how it will benefit them.
I think we've all been through enough budget seasons to know that that would be an unrealistic goal.
Just checking. Okay.
But if it happened, you'd take it.
But if it would happen, I'd take it, and I think it's, you know, I really hope that it's a matter of education. I hope that when people see that it's 25 cents on, you know, a $1,000 valuation for their house, that if, you know, if their mom, dad, you know, grandmother, grandfather has a heart attack, that when we get there at 7 o'clock in the morning, like when we had that call, and we've got a paramedic who can give them, you know, medications to improve their quality of life, that 25 cents per thousand is worthwhile. And it may be for only 10 people in town each year. But over 10 years, that's 100 residents of a 5,000 population town that have been improved by 25 cents a thousand. So I guess in my estimation, I say that's an educational thing. And so I keep it as a goal because I believe that is what compromises our professional ambulance service, is to provide that level of service. I think our townspeople deserve it.
And I think we need to get out there and explain it a lot better, but also any event that you go to that you're able to talk
Promote.
it up.
As I'm doing right now, standing in front, making sure that this is still a goal for us. Absolutely. I agree.
I think once the people find out what they're getting for the money,
Yeah. Well, we've had a lot of people,
okay.
you know, that, you know, have been going around and just a lot of bad things to say about the ambulance, and it's easy to armchair quarterback.
Yep.
But we have a good group of guys. We are reorganizing in a way that is the highest level of professionalism that this town, this fire ambulance service has ever seen. And so we need to get that out to these folks, that bumps along the road, past now, we need to move forward. This is something that will benefit every citizen of town. When we put free CPR to any town citizen, let them see what it takes to do CPR. Let them see how a paramedic can really have involvement and do more to save a life. Let them see the equipment that we have that can help save a life. So I absolutely agree. I like that we're keeping it as a goal. I like that to speak more about it, because I believe even at like an open house,
Yep.
there's an opportunity. I think that probably today, I don't know if they, you know, kept it as, when they talked to you, but I think that, for anybody who spends the time with the department and gets to know the dedication of the guys that are there, and I use guys because we have guys and girls, and I should be probably more politically correct, but it's a good group, and they're working hard. And I think anybody who comes in and actually sees that and doesn't just listen to all the noise, they understand that we're doing a great job. They understand that we're moving forward. They understand that we're a professional organization, and for 25 cents on a 1,000 valuation, we really, the townspeople deserve a full ambulance paramedic service.
do you say Norris is having, or
Open
beginning of
house
the
on
year,
Thursday
open
night?
house or something like that?
Thursday night from 6
Yeah.
to 7?
Well, again, I mean, should we bring an ambulance with a couple of the folks in there and pass out information saying, here's what we're going for? They'll see a truck, they'll see people, you give them a brochure saying, this is what the service will do. You probably don't have it for Thursday, but
I
yeah.
mean, I would love to do that. It's, I've just, my safe officer, who had, used to do a lot of nighttime coverage, used to pick up 15 nights a month,
Yeah.
half the month, who had moved out of town, is actually starting to maybe move back into town. That's good in a number of ways. For one, it gives more nighttime coverage, more solid, we don't miss as many calls. The other is that now here's an employee that I see more, and he does public education. So can we reach out to more of those things? I believe we can. I've actually got a very strong public education background. I have had so much other administrative stuff to deal with that, guess what? I have to pick priorities. And whether it's coming here to justify why 5 miles from the station is a response area, then that's what I spend my time doing.
But I mean, having you at these events with somebody else, hopefully, would be great.
Yeah, but just to give you an idea, I'm going to give you 4 pages of stuff that I do. And yes, I want to be at those events, but also Thursday nights, a couple of things happens. That's our training night. Thursday nights is also, once a month is for a chiefs meeting, which I don't always make to because training is more important to keep it organized for the department. But in concept, I agree with you. I would like to be at more of those events. I think it's a good point if your point is that we need to outreach more. I agree with you, and that's why we've got this open house coming up, and we can do more of that.
I mean, that training, you're at the Thursday nights?
Yes.
I mean, would it be good to you and grab one person on a Thursday night that we're having an event and bring them out and show them, that'd be part of the training, per
Yeah,
se.
perhaps we can do that for this Thursday specifically.
I don't know about this Thursday, but I mean, that'd be
I was gonna
nice.
say,
Well,
I think you probably have to get-
I've reacted. I had a teacher that called up and said, oh, I'm putting on a program. She was a new teacher, didn't realize that we had a program and had scheduled things and said, oh, I would, can I get called the day before and said, can I get an ambulance at the school? And it's like,
Nice if you can do it.
and we did it
Yeah.
because as much as it's like, oh, geez, that's tough, it's important.
Yeah.
It's important for the kids. It's important for the town. So would I
Any
try and
event-
be there on Thursday? Yes, I'd try and be there on Thursday.
By any event that's going to draw a big crowd, I think that's an opportunity.
I think it's an excellent opportunity.
Because next time we go to get it to vote, you're going to have all these people saying, oh, yeah, I remember seeing the chief, or I remember seeing this one. That's
Yep.
important.
Yep.
Because now we probably didn't
Well-
give enough information.
Well, and if I can mirror that back, if I may, only because we had an event where there was, in our SAFE program, our Student Awareness of Fire Education program, we had a child who had called 911 because they'd learned it with Southampton firefighters. That saved their mom's life. We had a representative, we had Don Humison and I'm going to be shot for forgetting the other one. Colcott. Yes, I'm sorry, and he's actually related to my wife. His wife is.
You're in really big trouble now.
I'm never going to live that one down. Colcott, who came to our station, and they presented awards, and I invited the select board, and no one came.
When was that?
This was a year ago. Charlie came to it before he was a selectman. So, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that, yes, I want to do more for, and you know what? I would love to see participation and backing and support from
Absolutely.
each of you, because I think that is equally as important as seeing the chief there, to have the town be supporting those kind of public education things.
Agreed.
So I would like to do more, and I would love to have
Yeah, just give us some
more
notice.
backing for that. Absolutely.
Okay.
It's a
Yep.
good point, and I would love to. I'm not sure if we came up with a goal from that or not.
Increased public outreach.
Sure. Heather, you with us?
Heather, we're adding number 4, increased public outreach. by the
Increased
fire-
public outreach?
Yes.
So what was the finalized thing for number 3 on ALS? I wasn't really sure what your
To-
definitive goal was.
I think it's just to
We-
not let it fall to the background.
We
wanna
would
make-
continue.
continue to pursue the goal of ALS coverage,
Is it the goal or continue to stay up with the agreement with the ALS?
the goal of the agreement.
Okay.
Are there any other comments in regards to the goals of the fire chief? If not, chief, I just have to go back to one thing, and then we will go into executive session. We will not be returning to open session.
Sure.
We did receive an email. You can sit down because it doesn't have to do.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. We were talking earlier about, I just have to find it, the bylaw ad hoc committee, and we had 2 interested parties. We had received an email during the course of the meeting from Francine Tishman, who also would like to be on that board. So at this point, we have 3 members. We could formally appoint Francine Tishman, Virginia Ahart, and Jim Palermo to the bylaw ad hoc committee tonight, if the board so wishes to do so.
Do you need a motion?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
So there's a motion by John Martin to appoint Francine Tishman, Virginia Ahart, and Jim Palermo to the ad hoc bylaw ad hoc committee, and a second by Charlie Kinnicky. Any other discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And just for those at home, if anyone else is interested, we still have 2 more spots. I know you're waiting to get the email to me, but feel free.
At this point, we're going to move into executive session just for one reason, is that true? We're going to move into executive session. We will not be returning to open session under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, Number 1, to discuss complaints against an employee. By roll call vote, please.
Kinnicky, aye.
Martin, aye.
Moulton, aye.
Sears, aye.